Have you ever been scrolling through Pinterest and saving all these beautiful sweaters, cozy scarves, and cute handmade pieces and thinking, I wish I could make something like that? Well, this is your sign to start knitting. Welcome to Knitting Area, a new series where I will be teaching you everything you need to know about knitting from the very first stitch to the finished project. I do the research, explain the confusing parts, share all the tips and tricks so that you don't have to spend all the hours and figure out everything on your own. Whenever you never held a knitting needle or you try it out, this series is here to guide you step by step. So let's grab your drink and let's start. Before we start knitting, let's talk about what knitting actually is. Knitting is a craft where you have yarn and needles to create fabric by connecting loops of yarn together. These small loops are called stitches. And by combining the stitches, you create different pattern, design, texture, shapes. You might already know crocheting. So what's the difference between crocheting and knitting? At crocheting, you are using one hook and you are only crocheting or doing one loop at a time. And at knitting, you have almost every time two needles and the stitches are on the needles, so you are working with all them. Knitting is often known for creating soft, stretchy, flexible fabric, which is why it's popular for sweaters, socks, and scarves. So why is knitting so popular? First of all, knitting is incredibly creative. There are so much patterns out there. You can do any kind of clothing, accessories. You can literally turn a ball of yarn into something fabulous. A lot of people, including me, loves to knit because it's relaxing. The repetitive movement can feel calming and it's a great activity while watching a movie, or what I prefer, to be less on your devices. And of course it's very special and at the end you are proud of what you created with your own hands. With knitting you can create different things like sweaters, cardigan, scarves, hat, socks, blankets, bags, accessories, or some home decor, or like tops, many different tops. The possibilities are endless. Now let's talk about the material you need. Good news are you don't need a whole collection of things that might declutter your home. There are basic things that you need. First are knitting needles. There are different knitting needles. There are these circular ones. Then there are only straight ones in also different lengths. And there are also a few knitting needles for cables, and there are a variety of needles. But I think you need the beginning circular needles to begin with. So there are also here a lot of different things. There are metals, there are bamboo, there are plastic. I personally like to use metal because it's very slippery and it's not hard to knit. So take out the loops and make another loop. So this is 3.5 millimeter and the length is 80 from the cable. Then this is also 3.5, but the cable is 40 centimeter long. This is also 3.5 and this is 100 centimeter long, the cable. So maybe you are asking why there are different sizes and length of the cables, because for every part, maybe you're doing a sweater, you need other length. When you have a pattern where you start at the collar, you have to have circular needle with the length of 30 centimeter because the stitches are so much that it's capable to be knitting. When you're starting with 100 on the neck, you can do that. You must use another technique, which is the magic loop. But that's for another time. So yeah, and then when the sweater is getting bigger and bigger, you need a longer needle for the stitches to have all on your needles. I will do this part where you choosing a needle in the next video, how to read pattern, because that is very important, but not right now. Now it doesn't matter which needle you have. Next are tapestry needles. You need them to sew in the ends of the yarn when you're changing yarns, or when you're at the end, or when you're doing the Italian bind off, which is very important, that so you can finish off the pattern. So you see there are different kinds of tapestry needles. I'm always using this one because this is small enough for the smaller project, or if you have a smaller needle size, so you can use that always. But I have 3 sizes. I think maybe one is enough. When I bought my circular needles, I think I bought them at Amazon. There was a set where every needle that was in the pack had a tapestry needle, so you can look for that. Next are stitch markers. I would buy a pack maybe at Amazon, or you have a local yarn shop in your area. So I would support your local yarn shop. This is rule number 1. When you have the budget and you want yarn or some materials, go look and see if you have a local yarn shop and support them. It's okay when you maybe don't have the budget and can support them fully, but they are doing events or workshops, or maybe get some stitch markers from them so that they are supported, because today it's very hard for yarn stores to survive because of the online shops. Yeah, you don't get every yarn in the local yarn shop, but you can look if there's maybe some alternative yarns you can use, but they all I will talk about in the next video. The stitch markers are there to mark the beginning of round, and maybe when you're doing a pattern which has some structure, maybe cables or so, you can mark the beginning and the end of the repeat. So it's easier to you to have an overview and when the next cable repeat starts. Next, a measuring band. You need that because you have to measure yourself for the pattern, because for maybe sweaters or tops you need to have your bust circumference, so you need to have that. The important thing, I think, is the ball of yarn. There are different kind of yarns. This is, I think, 100% wool, so it's a little bit itchy, but not itchy, but it has some structure. This yarn you can use for every project. This is very important. You have to match the pattern with the yarn. Not all yarns can be used for our project. So there are also these yarns. This yarn is a sock wool. So there is content of 75% wool and 25 polyamide. So you need, when you're doing socks, some acrylic or nylon yarn to have in your socks, because it's very important. When you have only, I don't know, cotton, then it's stretching out and it doesn't hold the structure so good. So this is not only maybe, but this is the constellation you need to have for socks. Then this is 100% cotton. You can do with the tops good, sweaters yes, but not all of them. You have to see which you can do. Then there's some fluffy yarn which you can use alone or held together with another yarn. This is brushed applique silk, which is in the category mohair. You are using this almost every time with another yarn to make it a little bit more fluffy. Yeah, but you have to be careful because mohair can be itchy. This is brushed alpaca silk, so it's not mohair, and it's soft. I like this yarn very much. And then you have, I didn't hold it so beautiful, but this is baby alpaca. So it can be a little bit itchy. You have to try different yarn for yourself and then see, okay, what is good, what I don't like, and everything. Also, there is linen we have, and other plant-based yarn, but I think I will do another video on that because it's a little bit long to talk about in this first guide. Before we start knitting, we need to know a few important words in the knitting world. So first, it's cast on. Cast on means casting on is the very first step you need in order to make a project. It means creating the first stitches on your needles. This is a foundation for your project. Without a cast on, you can't knit anything. There are many cast on techniques. There are two important stitches, the knit stitch and the purse stitch. The knit stitch is almost always the first knit stitch that beginners learn. This is the important stitch in the knitting world because you're almost always doing a knit stitch. So the purse stitch is the second important one. You can do in a pattern purse stitch, but you don't have to. It can be a pattern or a project with only knit stitches, which is very rare, but it can be. The purse stitch is technically the opposite side of the knit stitch. Then there are rows and rounds. Rows are when you're knitting in one direction and going the other one back. So it's not a circle, it is flat. So when you're knitting flat, you're doing rows. When you're knitting in circles, these are rounds because you're getting in the round. So the beginning and the end of the round are connected. So you have a circle. It's when you're doing maybe a sweater, it's the sleeves. You are there knitting in the round. When you're doing the body of the sweater or the neck, you're doing it in rounds. It can be that you are knitting the yoke flat, front and back, in two different pieces, and then you're joining in the round. But yeah, that are some basic words you need to know.